Welcome to School Life Unpacked, the podcast for anyone navigating the complexities of their child's education. Join me, Natasha Curtis-Ego, and a lineup of insightful guests as we explore the challenges, joys, and surprises of school life, offering support and tips to help us feel more confident and connected. Today we have some wonderful guests who are going to talk about transition and what they offer, but I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves and explain what they do.
Hi, I'm Lynsey Weston. I work for City Family alongside my colleague here.
And I'm Sian Ansell, and I have the great pleasure every day working with the wonderful Lynsey.
So we're communication language advisors and specialist early years teachers. We work for City Family, which is a CIC, a community interest company, that's basically been developed as a result of the wonderful work through the 10-year funded A Better Start Southend programme.
So could you explain a little bit more about what you do and how your roles are so vital in our community so that people know what it is exactly?
Yeah, so we've been supporting lots and lots of earlier settings and schools locally with their communication and language development for children. So we support them by going in and doing observations of the children's interaction, the adults' interaction with the children, and then giving tips and ideas and strategies of ways that they can further support that development. And we work really closely with the speech and language therapy team locally. So it's ensuring that there's that combination of education meets health in case the children do need a referral onto speech and language therapy. And then we can support with different ways of, engaging with the families and ensuring that what the families are doing with the children really mirrors what the practitioners and teachers are also striving to achieve to move the children on.
And then we also had the great joy of working collaboratively with other organisations across the centre of Southend, so linking up with libraries, and we were doing a little storytelling project with the libraries. So we recorded various different people reading and sharing a story online, which were then shared, and it was called Southend Stories. And it was very popular.
It
was really lovely, and again involved lots of parents and carers. So we didn't just have, sort of experts, so supposedly sharing a story. But we kind of encouraged parents who were happy to share story sharing too. So it was really lovely working together. We also worked with the museums.
We did, yeah.
And we thought about ways that you could encourage some of the exhibitions to be really sort of language based, sort of so that the children's chatter mattered when they went into the space. So they created little chatter bags that had prompts for parents and carers to ask their little ones to, can you see where the doggy is, or whatever it might be in works of art. So that was lovely.
Yeah, and then most recently we've also been working, this is our 6th year, on the Talking Transitions project, because it was established a few years ago that within Southend there was a need by local head teachers to ensure that there was a sort of collaborative approach between the reception class teachers and the earlier settings that they were receiving children from when they transitioned. So we had a little think about it, and we started off quite small. But we thought what we needed to do was engage with some local schools and early years settings that were within the A Better Start wards. And the whole point of the project was to bring the practitioners and teachers together, because some of them had lost that connection over the years. Unfortunately, there weren't as many cluster meetings that were being held, which used to be held by the early years team locally. So it was decided that we would bring them together almost a whole year before the children actually transitioned, because one of the things that we've recognised is transition is a bit of a buzzword when it comes to the summer term, and people thinking, we know where our child's now going, we know which school we've got, which place we've got, so let's all worry ourselves about the transition now. Actually, what we decided to do was take a step back and engage with the schools and the earlier settings in the sort of autumn term, the whole year before those transitioning children were actually going to go to school.
Yeah.
So the project had 3 different elements. We had learning together, because we thought the most important thing, first of all, was to bring all of the practitioners and teachers who were going to be receiving and saying goodbye to their children together to meet. And we thought, what better way to do that than through a communication and language sort of learning scenario. So Sian, myself, and our esteemed colleague Isabel Ratislaw, who's a highly specialist speech and language therapist working for the Let's Talk team, who deliver the speech and language therapy locally for A Better Start, we delivered the 10-week Elkland accredited course.
Oh, wow.
So that way, all of the practitioners and teachers were meeting each other, learning together and establishing that sort of trusting relationship with each other, because they're all starting off in the same sort of neutral ground. And that was a really good way of them getting to know each other and forming those brilliant relationships that they needed later on when they start to discuss the children's needs. So following on from learning together, Shani, we had
working together, surprisingly. But we like to put a nice big label on it. Working together. And that really was that real triangle of trust. So not only the settings, so the earlier settings and schools sharing their experiences, thinking about what they're seeing the group of children universally maybe needing a little support around, but also thinking about parents and carers and what are their needs, what are their wants, what are their concerns. So in that spring term where parents and carers are beginning to maybe think about, oh gosh, I've got my application in, what's going to happen, we would typically send a little letter introducing ourselves and the project to parents and carers, and then do a little survey to find out from them what their concerns might be, how they were feeling about their little ones' start to school. And often their feedback then drives what we then do a little bit later. So some parents might have highlighted that they were a little bit worried maybe about making friends. Will their little ones have friends? Because in their little preschool, their child was the only one that hopefully might be going to such and such a school. And so we would share in our what we called satellites of expertise, so our satellite groups, where we're bringing the schools, teachers and the settings together in a sort of locality base to unpick some of the things that were being mentioned, to then build their events or their transition supports around that. So that was really helpful, wasn't it?
And also in those surveys, we weren't only capturing the parents and carers' needs, but also the children's voice as well. That was really important. So not only were we asking the parents and carers what they thought about starting school, but we were asking them to ask their children. So again, very much wanting to reflect those answers in once we brought everyone back together for the summer term, where the schools and the earlier settings put on transition events, really reflecting those needs of the families and also of the children. And typically those events tended to centre around a book about transition. Recently, it's focused on a book called The Worrysaurus, because when we were analysing the needs of the parents and carers and the children, a lot of it was not only the children worrying about starting school, but the parents worrying. And this was very much reflected in what the practitioners were saying about the current cohort of children who were going to move into starting school. And also it's quite reflective of what the reception class teachers had seen in the previous cohort who had started. So we thought, great, The Worrysaurus is a great book for discussion about worries. And it's not about promoting worries, it's about how to cope with worries and strategies for coping. So when we have the final element of the Talking Transitions project, which is the being together element, so we've had learning together, working together, and then being together. That's the final stage, where all of the earlier settings and the schools hold little transition activities. So they might invite parents and carers in to sort of participate in those alongside their children. The schools do the same when they hold their transition and introductory meetings. But all of the activities there reflect the story of the Worrysaurus. So we had loads of different areas of the EYFS curriculum reflected in little dinosaur-linked activities and butterfly activities, because there's a butterfly in the story of the Worrysaurus. And the children found that to be really, really sort of connecting. So did the parents. It eased the children's worries, because they could see, oh, school's about the same things we do in our nurseries or our preschools or with our childminder, they do the same things there.
Mm.
And even when we attended some of the summer events and the school teachers were sitting down to share the story of the Worrysaurus, not only could we see the delight on the children's faces, we know this book, but the parents and carers were also like, oh, great, we know this book too, because we've had our children, share it at their previous settings as well. So it's all about just making everybody feel trusted, making them feel comfortable, and then therefore you're going to get that smooth transition.
Yeah.
And also sometimes what we had was brilliant. We had early years setting staff attending the school's summer events alongside parents and carers and the children. The parents and carers could see that the schools and the earlier settings were talking to each other, that the invitations had gone out to them, and seeing how important it was to ensure that there's that consistent approach across all the professionals.
And also for the little one to see their key person. I mean, wow.
Yeah.
You're not in your box. You're not back in the preschool. What are you doing here? You know, it's a lovely connection.
Yeah.
And I think that's what really helps everybody cope with change, is knowing that there's a connection, that your little ones have had a chance to meet others who are going to be with them for the next year ahead, kind of thing, that parents are having a chance to come together and meet each other as well. I think that really it's sort of that the connections and the ways that we can do that are significant in ensuring that any transition experience is as smooth as possible. And it really helps our little ones' resilience then as well.
Yeah, because
Absolutely.
like you said, it is teaching them how to cope with the worry.
Yes.
And I think sometimes we always say, oh, kids are resilient, but actually they take on a lot of it and don't know how to get it out.
Exactly.
So
exactly. And
having that
sometimes,
opportunity.
Natasha, some of our little ones, even though they may be 4 or 5, don't know how to name what it is that they're feeling
Absolutely.
at all.
Yeah.
So having a themed story can give them that link. Oh, yes. Or knowing that they're grown up, they're human, their mum, their dad, their grandparents, whoever's special to them, says, oh, you were looking really a little bit worried. I could see you frowning. So we mirror, don't we? We look at each other and go, oh, you're looking a little bit sad. Or does my tummy, when I feel like that, sometimes my tummy feels a little bit tickly, a little bit like butterflies might be in my tummy, whatever. We are helping our little ones regulate what it is that they're feeling. And so when they're then in a situation that feels very different to their daily experience of maybe being in with their childminder, being at home, or being at their preschool or nursery, they're beginning to develop their emotional literacy, so they can start to be able to reach out to a soon to become familiar adult, but maybe not yet, but to be able to feel confident enough to say, I'm feeling a bit worried, or I'm hungry, or even I'm hot or cold, or it's the whole gamut of what we might be feeling. So as parents and carers, knowing that our little ones are developing that skill, that again helps to regulate us, that reassures us. Well, right, okay, he can show. It could be a picture. It could be, it doesn't have to be verbalized. So together with our settings and the schools, they've all really considered ways that can be done using visual prompts, using family photos. We had one school, and some of our preschools, they'll set up what's called a little family wall. So they may have photos of little ones at home with their main caregivers or with their pets, whatever, and they're put up with some cushions. And then without needing necessarily to say to a grown-up, in the school, I'm feeling a little bit uncertain about all of this, I did school yesterday and now I have to do it today. I'm not sure. There's a little space I can go and sit, and then I can find my special humans.
Yeah.
And then that's a prompt immediately to the adult to maybe go share the space, sit alongside, maybe talk about, there's my doggy, or whatever, so that there's a shared sort of interest. And then they can start to say, oh, I can see you're feeling a little bit wobbly. So, when's mummy coming back, or daddy, whoever usually is where it starts. And then again, if they're using visual prompts like a little timetable, you can say, well, we're here, look, we're having lunch soon. And after lunch, we've got this, then it's story. And then look, there's a picture of all our mums and dads waiting for us. So that, the way that we generate within our environment, the opportunities to support our little one's emotional well-being, then change can really be managed by them and by our parents and carers as well.
And I think labelling those emotions that we're seeing our children and showing them in ourselves is vitally important. That's really good parental advice. And we actually do that by including little activities on something called a chatter challenge.
I've had one of these. They're amazing. We did it all through August, and it was really fun because we had to also do the About Me bag. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but it was really fun.
Great. So what we do in order to come up with the ideas and create the ideas for the activities, we ask the current audience. We're again looking at what the survey results are saying from the parents and carers. What are the children's concerns? What are their concerns? And then we ask all of the practitioners and teachers involved in the Talking Transitions project, which at the moment is 95. I think we've got schools and settings locally as part of the project. We reach over 2,000 children each year through the project. So what we ensure is that the activities reflect the current needs of the children. So we've always got, aspects talking about their own feelings, any concerns they might have. As Shani's just said, we may encourage them to, draw a little picture of someone special to them. Again, that can be taken into the school, as Shani's just described. We've got all these different ideas and elements. Sharing is coming up as a theme for this year. Turn taking, fine motor skills. So little things that parents and carers can be working on in order to generate these ideas for the Chatter Challenge. Great. Absolutely brilliant. So when it comes to things like the fine motor skills, one of the things we suggest is a very simple thing. It's never anything that costs a lot of money, is it? We encourage the children at home to play around with things like tongs
or pegs,
for picking tweezers if they're not too sharp, obviously. Also cutting out things, but just literally using tongs to move like a cotton wool ball from one cup to another, or leaves in the garden, whatever it happens to be. That movement actually does help the children for their later writing, when they have to come and properly try and hold a pencil or a pen to do their writing. And it seems quite abstract and a bit strange, like, why are we encouraging use of this? But there's always a reason behind what the activities are on the Chatter Challenge in order to benefit the children once they start school. So alongside the Chatter Challenge, what we also produced, and some of the activities on the Chatter Challenge reflected this, was gathering a few little objects, I suppose, to put into something called a chatter bag, which I think you were just referring to. So the chatter bag, the reason behind that was to again seamlessly move the children into when they start school. So they've gathered some resources, some bits they've put in their bags over the summer holidays. And then once they start school, there's a little provocation for them to talk to their friends, to their teachers, to their LSAs, to whoever will listen to them about it. And actually, recent feedback we've had from the schools is that those chatter bags have been vital in encouraging the communication language skills of the children. Also turn taking again, sharing. But if the children have got a physical reminder of an object in the bag, again, that gives them something to talk about rather than just an abstract question. Oh, what's your favourite thing? For example, if I've actually got my favourite thing in the bag, here it is, and look at it, and I can describe it as I'm talking about it, and so on. So we may not be continuing with chatter bags moving forwards, funded, but what we are encouraging all of our schools to do is, if they thought that the chatter bags were, really beneficial to the children, then please provide their own. Put a little list of things on the outside of the bag that you want propped in. nothing too precious has been the feedback. Sometimes children were getting things and parents were like, can we have that back now? We're really worried it's going to get lost at school.
What our bag to talk about?
It's normally the soft toys, right?
Yes.
So my son took in his rabbit, and I was like, I love the fact that you've taken it in. And I was the parent who said, oh, are they done with the rabbit? Because I can't replace the rabbit.
Exactly.
Bring it home.
So again, every year, depending on the feedback, it drives the project forward. And everyone who's been involved is always so really supportive and enthusiastic to make those changes as well, because they want it to work. They want it to succeed. So
following the pre-survey, the pre-transition survey, you've possibly gathered there is also a post-transition survey. Same letter goes back out to the parents and carers in the schools this time. So the previous one went to the earlier settings who are going to be saying goodbye to the children. So their parents and carers receive that letter, and it introduces the project to them. And then once the children have actually settled at school, their parents and carers get the letter saying, how was the transition for your child? How did you feel it went? How did the child feel it went? Was it a smooth transition? What helped? And so on. Again, driving what we then produce for the following year's cohort. So, the whole project is absolutely driven by the people involved. It's not mine and Sean's project. We're just there to sort of, oversee it and ensure it gets implemented.
Facilitate
Facilitated, exactly.
Resources.
We are the conveners. There we are.
But it's
the grandparents. Oh no, sorry, I'm the old grandparent. Lynsey's very much the youngster.
But it is. I think it's one of those things that parents see, but when you see it in action and you go through it, you realize how vital it is. And like you said, a lot of the activities you may be questioning, but having someone say, oh, actually this is why it's being done. So I mean, I remember my son being at nursery and being told, oh, he needs to like maybe do monkey bars to strengthen his upper body, and I'm thinking he's only little, why doesn't he? And then his nursery teacher saying, oh no, it's because it'll strengthen his arms and his fingers, and he'll be able to hold the pencil better, because he was one of these children, I think it's quite funny, didn't want to draw, didn't really want to, had no interest, but just those last few months at nursery, all of a sudden he's become Picasso, wants to draw and write, but it took him a little while to get the strength in his fingers, I guess.
Natasha, you're highlighting the fact that our children all develop at different times in different ways.
Definitely.
And making sure that experience of being able to play in lots of different contexts through nursery into reception gives those little ones that time to be able to find their expressive feet, so to speak, whether it's going to be painting with both hands or it's going to be a controlled writing or orally telling the story. Sometimes children really come to their fores just by being able to wrap themselves up in a bit of fabric, and suddenly they've become whatever character. But if those resources aren't there, then we would never know. So I think that's what's so wonderful about early years, the early years foundation stage, is that play, exploration, curiosity underpins everything. And so we do try to make the chatter challenges as playful as possible,
but as broad, representing the early years foundation stage curriculum, preparing parents without wagging fingers and saying your child needs to be able to do X, Y, Z. We never want to give that impression. It's always through playful ideas. And one of the things that we also have developed is we've got a workshop for parents and carers that we've recently run in Bromley, funnily enough. But it's all about those playful experiences. And one of the tips that we give is the monkey bars. So it's called Time to Talk About.
Okay.
And again, it was sort of, we were encouraging parents of children with 3-year-olds so that they've got an idea of the kinds of activities. We're not rushing. Oh, we've got to do all these amazing things in the summer holidays, getting you ready for school. It's like a gentle, if you start doing some of these activities, you'll see you'll see the payoffs later on. So it was time to talk about talk. We did a workshop on, that was 1 week. Time to talk about number, time to talk about sound, So that's where we do a very basic introduction to all of the amazing listening and attention activities that parents and carers can do to prepare children for their later phonics learning once they start at reception class. And I'll come back to that in a minute. Time to talk about writing. Time
Becoming
to
a
talk
reader.
about, books and reading obviously is so important. And then time to talk about the 2 C's, which were curiosity and creativity. What was I about to come back to?
Phonics.
Thank you. Really important message that we try and give to our earlier settings as well as parents and carers, because there are so many different phonics programs out there that schools dip into and use. I think there are 73 out there in the ether that the registered phonics programs for schools to use. What we don't want earlier settings and or parents or carers to do is to sort of think, I've got to teach my child that if I do this action and create a little sort of tickly ant on my arm and go ah ah ah, which is the jolly phonics way of saying the ah. We don't want to teach our children that before they start school, because what if they go to school and do a completely different phonics program that's not jolly phonics, and then the child's thoroughly confused. So by gently sort of suggesting listening and attention activities, such as going on a listening walk, or I don't know, lots of other activities that we come up with in the course. I can't think of any right now, but
learning nursery rhymes.
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of playful rhythm, rhyme, alliteration, sharing silly poems, tongue twisters, all of that, where the children have to tune in to language and sounds. That is the absolute perfect foundation you can give your child skill-wise in order to start their phonics later on. Coming back to the Chatter Challenge as well, I thought that when we've had parents and carers really engaging in the Chatter Challenge, sometimes it's because the schools and the earlier settings have really endorsed the Chatter Challenge. And sometimes what they do is put out on their social media sites little daily reminders where the children can actually see their teachers or their previous practitioners from the earlier settings bringing some of those daily activities that they can do over August in preparation for starting school to life. And that's been really, really fantastic. And some of the feedback that we had again through our survey was based around that, how brilliant it was seeing some of the activities come to life.
And something else that was fed back was that we're very aware of inclusivity, so thinking about all of our children and how we can support every child. So we've got an adaptable Chatter Challenge. So when a little one is going to be going and joining a school and maybe they've got an identified special educational need already, then the setting, the parents and the new school come together and kind of work out, well, what's your little one's real motivators? What do they love? And so then there's maybe 5 activities, but it's all linked to supporting that individual child. And so the feedback from the parents for whom their little ones have that SEN need identified has been hugely positive this year, because they felt that they were really being listened to.
Absolutely.
And what their little one was being asked to experience really met their need. So a little one who was visually impaired, rather than talk about what you can see, which is a lot, in some of our activities, it was much more around thinking about what I'm feeling, or as in touching different textures, etc., and things that were particularly of interest for that little one. Or we had another little one for whom being able to verbalise and express themselves verbally was not going to happen. So therefore, let's think of the things that we can do so that little one can show us, using objects of reflection, or maybe it might be around being able to point to, giving choices, but at the same time, really meeting those individuals' needs. And that has had very positive feedback. So we'll be continuing with that, forever, I think.
Because if you don't have that, there'll be children whose parents are like, well, we can't do any of this, so we can do one thing, and then when the child starts, they feel excluded. So that being able to be part of the class must be, so rewarding.
We've got such a culturally diverse city now, considering all the different languages that are spoken out there. Some of our children in our earlier settings and schools are trilingual. They speak 3 different languages.
Wow.
So it was very important for us to ensure that all families could access the Chatter Challenge activities in their home languages. So one of the things that we devised was ensuring that the activities were published on at the time, the A Better Start web pages.
Yeah.
And then that whole page of all the information that's on there, all the communication language information, all the milestones about children's communication language, everything on there could be translated. It was through Google Translate, so it's a best fit.
Yeah.
But there's a huge
not, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
There's a huge range of languages on there.
Yeah.
So that was vital for us, so that we do feel that we're being as inclusive as possible with all the activities that are there. The other thing that a lot of parents and carers did quite naturally, sometimes they were encouraged to do it by the schools and the settings, but what we loved hearing about was there was like a Friday fun meet up in the park on over the summer holidays.
Yes.
So again, the parents and carers are thinking about meeting each other regularly, and it didn't matter if people turned up, they turned up. If they didn't, they didn't. It wasn't a huge commitment, but it was an opportunity for the children to meet each other, to feel secure in their own relationships, and for the parents and carers to feel that they've got that kind of sort of familiar bonding experience with other people going through the same things,
Same worries, same journey, that kind of
exactly.
thing, absolutely.
Really important.
And for some parents who are working parents and not able maybe to do the pick up and the drop offs, knowing that actually we could be meeting up in the summer gave them a chance to get to know some of the other parents and carers whom their little ones may be making friends with, so we've had some very positive feedback from that aspect of being able to meet up with people.
Yeah, definitely.
Thinking about other things that parents can do as well as meeting up and arranging little play dates, is sort of when you know where your little one is going, maybe practicing the walk to school and talking about those familiar things that they might be passing. So you might see the post box, a zebra crossing, the corner shop. It might be that you walk past the park or a big supermarket, whatever you might be, whatever your journey is. If you've talked about those, what you're actually doing is helping your little one to go, first then this, then that, and then school. So they're sequencing, their journey to school, but it's also helping them emotionally to recognise, right, okay, so we're going here, then we're there, and then it's school, and sort of then helps with that anxiety around separating from you. It's like, okay, I know where I'm going.
And it doesn't matter if it's not a walk to school, if it's a bus ride or it's a car journey, exactly the same thing. You can notice the landmarks on your way and just...
We had a lovely one, a little one who was going to be getting the train to school. So his setting had that conversation with parents and carers, and basically they took pictures then all around what you would see coming into Central Southend's train station. So the bridge and this and the train, took a picture of the train.
Made it into a lotto game, didn't they? It was great.
Thrilled beyond, walking around with his little picture of the train. Look, I will be getting this train. I'm getting this train. Wow, he was absolutely thrilled. And another was that our schools and settings were sharing photos of who their new teachers might be, or the space where they may be going, or the playground or the slide or whatever, the equipment the children would see. And so then again, we had another little one who took this picture that was of her new school, wherever she went, and she went into the supermarket and as her mum was being served, was showing this picture to the lady. Look, that's my new teacher, that's my that's my playground. And it was really lovely watching the mum recounting this tale with great joy in her heart, because you could tell she felt reassured that her little one was excited to be going to school.
I think when the schools did that, when the schools produced little reminders, visual reminders, again, a lot of it comes back to visual, which again, it's got no language attached to it, has it? It's just a visual for the child. when they're actually sharing pictures with the earlier settings prior to the children starting at school. So we had like some settings had, I don't know, children going to like 10 or 12 different schools. So they were given all these pictures, right? This is our native Lord's school, this is Greenway school, this is so-and-so school. But the children were put into little groups, you know, and with their key people were being spoken through. This is what you'll see when you go on your transition day. Yeah. This is what it's going to look like. This is where the toilets are. You know, it's all the things that we take for granted as adults that the children might be concerned about. This is the dining hall. This is the playground. This is the front entrance to the school.
This is the lady who says hello.
Yeah.
The reception desk.
Exactly. This might be the lollipop person you see crossing the road. All of those things that we, as I say, as adults might take for granted. So I think the walk to school is great, but the sharing of pictures as well is so vitally important. When our settings and schools get together for something that we call Thrive Time, which is once they all know which schools the children are going to be attending, that's where all that really important information about the children who are going to be starting is shared by the earliest settings. So if the child has had speech and language therapy or has a special educational need, and strategies that have worked for the earliest settings, how parents and carers have supported, all of that vital information gets shared then with the new teacher. Yeah. So that, you know, parents and carers don't have to have that anxiety.
Parents and carers' permission.
Of course.
To share that goes with that.
But what you don't want is parents and carers thinking, oh my goodness, does the teacher know about this?
That's actually
it's
such a worry where you feel that there's a disconnect. You do nursery or daycare, whatever, and then you're thrown into school and you never know that they actually communicate, which is nice to know that they do.
Yes,
and your child is going to have that consistency.
So that's when all those sort of really lovely visuals can be shared backwards, so that the earliest settings are sharing that, but the schools have got the information they need to ensure that they are ready for the child. There's a lot of terminology that's about school readiness, and it's not whether the children are ready to start for school, but it's whether the schools are ready to receive the children. You know, again, appreciating the individual needs and abilities of all of our children,
which is lovely, and we really are seeing that. Aren't we?
Absolutely.
I think. And also it's about including not only our childminders who are supporting little ones, so that they may be the people who are going transition event, because actually they are picking up and collecting, taking, etc. But then also welcoming those little ones who've not yet participated in early years education. You know, like literally for them, reception's going to be the first experience that they have. So the more opportunity, once parents and carers know where their little ones are going to be going, and it's confirmed that they are involved in that conversation, the better it is for everybody, so that all parents feel that they're being listened to, no matter what their little ones' prior experiences are.
And I think, again, parents and carers can support the children by little fun activities, you know, thinking about, you've bought the school uniform. Well, let's not wait till the very first day to put it on. Let's practice putting on our school uniform in readiness for. So it's not this, oh my goodness, how on earth do we approach this on the very first day? Whatever. Doing zips, Velcro shoes are very much encouraged. Little things like we saw a beautiful video the other day where a practitioner was sharing on a little video clip about, imagine the inside of a pair of plimsolls or a pair of school shoes, and imagine splitting a drawn heart down the middle. So you've got half the heart, the left-hand side of the heart in the left shoe, and the right-hand side of the heart drawn into the sole of the or the inside of the right shoe.
Stuck inside.
So when you then put the shoes together, they make the heart. So the child knows which way round to put their shoes on. Because as a reception class teacher, how many times after PE did I see children running out to the playground with the wrong shoes on the wrong feet? And
or the wrong child's shoes.
But they used to just carry on with it. Oh, I've got the wrong shoes on the wrong feet. Little things like that.
Yes.
So, again, you know, playing with buttons, doing things up, doing your zips. If the child is staying for lunch or is taking a snack in, you know, making sure they can open the container or the drink, you know, is accessible to them. Whatever it is, if you send them in with a drink with a straw attached, can they actually do it themselves? Or are they going to not have anything to eat or drink because they can't open and they need help, and perhaps they haven't got the language yet or the confidence to ask someone to help them? You know, it's all those little things that can be done. It's not about having to have the child know all their numbers or write their name. It's not all the traditional things that perhaps we used to think would be needed for the child to succeed at school. It's the incidentals, really, the things that just
it's the
encourage
emotional well-being, isn't it? And
Exactly.
The personal, I mean, within the EYFS, it's always referred to as the personal, social and emotional development. But in a sense, really, it's, yes, our little ones' self-confidence, what we're doing to help them feel that they're able to participate in the world that surrounds them. Often they show us what it is that they're really interested in anyway, and it's just exploring that with them, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. There's also loads of books out there that have been written. We've got a list of books here, and I don't know, is there a facility, a way of you sharing these following the podcast?
If you email them to me, I can put them in the little bio bit.
Oh, wonderful.
That would be great. Yeah, it's
So
just
people
all
can
about
have a look.
changes. Some of them are starting school.
Yeah.
Some of them are even for parents and carers, getting them emotionally ready.
We've got one.
So I can
that's
understand
just
that. You have
wonderful.
so many worries, don't you?
Yeah.
And you don't, as a parent, you don't want your child to have them. But they can see, they read you
Yeah.
like a book. They
They
know when
really
mummy's
do.
worried. And you're like, no, it's going to be fun. And they're like, well, your face doesn't like it's going to be fun.
Yeah, that's it. Because actually, helping our little ones cope with change, what we need to do is be regulated ourselves. How are we feeling about it?
Yeah.
And really recognise that, because it is a big change. If you've been the main care person for your little one, and then suddenly they're now in school, what are you going to do? How are you going to be filling your day? So it's also preparing ourselves for those changes. If we're busy at work, how are we going to be organising how we feel about coming home, etc. So there's this lovely story, which many may be familiar with, but it's written by Daisy Upton about her experiences. Very funny, very amusing, quite emotional as well, kind of recognising the big picture and the big feelings that we feel, but our little ones do too. And that's called The 5-Minute Mum. But I think dads can read it as well as other grown-ups. But that was one that we thought actually would be a really good read for a grown-up. But then we've got lots of lovely ones. The one that I suppose that I would recommend is Tilda Tries Again. I love a bit of alliteration anyway. Tilda Tries. But
we're talking transitions.
Exactly. But again, it's lovely. And there's another one, When the Dragon Goes to School. We've got a lovely book list that kind of goes through.
Share that.
The books that are around emotionally supporting little ones, what it's going to be like at school, all of that sort of thing, right the way through to feeling included. So there's books around inclusivity as well.
And something that we're really trying to encourage, as Sian said, we do work with lots of different partners across the city. But the libraries hopefully are going to be stocking in preparation for the children transitioning next summer. They'll be hopefully displaying and revealing a load of books around transition and change that can be borrowed by parents and carers, building up, getting the children ready.
Well, thank you so much both for your time and telling
Been
us
a
all
pleasure.
about what's going on.
Natasha, I
And
could
also-
talk forever.
But it's really, for me, it's exciting because I feel like as a parent, I wasn't so aware of what goes on to support myself and my child going through this transition. But it's just exciting to know there is support and you can get it. And the aim of this is to reach people who may not know, who don't venture to the libraries as much, but maybe they'll hear this and go, oh, actually, I can find out more. So that is the aim of today. So thank you so much.
It's been an
Thank you
absolute
for having
pleasure.
us. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode, and we truly appreciate you listening. Don't forget to turn on your notifications, subscribe, and follow to stay updated on future episodes. We look forward to seeing you next week.